In 1937, a St Bernard puppy was born in Norway. He would go on to become one of the most famous dogs in Europe. One day that year, Captain Erling Hafdo, the master of the Norwegian ship Thorodd, purchased one of the St Bernard puppies from the breeder near Oslo, and he was named Bamse, meaning teddy bear. From a very early age, the dog went to sea with the captain, after his wife told him that she had more than enough to cope with, having 4 children to look after, and Bamse made a huge and lasting impression on his family back in Honningsvåg. The children adored him from the minute they saw him, and with his good temperament, would play with Bamse until he next went to sea. In September 1939, World War II broke out, and the Thorodd was requisitioned by the Royal Norwegian Navy as a coastal patrol vessel, based in Hammerfest. On Friday, 9th February 1940, Bamse was officially enrolled as a crew member, possibly so that he got his own rations. A quiet area was selected for him on the upper deck where he could sleep in good weather in a wicker basket, which was attached to the ship. He also had a converted broom cupboard for use during inclement weather. Exactly 2 months later, Germany invaded Norway. The country capitulated on Monday 10th June, but Thorodd managed to escape to the UK along with 12 other Norwegian vessels, landing at Port Edgar on the Firth of Forth near Edinburgh on 17th June. The ship was converted to a minesweeper at Rosyth docks, and on 30th June she was stationed at Montrose in Angus and Dundee, where she continued service until the war ended in 1945. It's believed it was at this base that Bamse found his liking and tolerance for beer. The sailors would frequent the local pubs around Port Edgar and South Queensferry, with Bamse in tow. Bamse, meanwhile, acted as morale booster for the ship's crew and soon became a well-known sight in and around Montrose and Dundee. Not only was he a firm favourite, but he was also a brave dog. During engagement, he seemed to be unperturbed by the sound of gunfire. Once, he saved the life of Olaf Nilsson, a young lieutenant commander, who'd been attacked by a man wielding a knife at Dundee docks. He'd used his momentum and weight and managed to push the would-be assailant away from Nilsson. He continued pushing the man until he fell into the Victoria dock. He hadn't noticed the St Bernard, following on behind. In another act of heroism, he saved the life of a sailor who'd fallen overboard at the Norwegian wharf. He'd been barking loudly to raise the alarm. Then there was a splash as Bamse jumped into the water. The sailor hung on to the dog, who was barking all the time he was in the water, and soon members of the crew pulled them both out. Bamse was also a bit of a peacemaker. If fights broke out on the ship, he would intervene, placing his huge paws on their shoulders to calm them down. This is thought to have stemmed from a drunken brawl one time in a pub when he was hit on the head with a bottle, so he never put up with them again. One of his duties was to round up the sailors after they'd gone ashore. This all began at Port Edgar, where he would nudge the seamen after last orders had been called, and shepherded them towards their ship. He would eventually even go on buses to carry out his curfew duty. Unaccompanied, he would have his bus pass attached round his neck, funded by the sailors, and the bus driver was always more than happy to allow him on board. He would travel from Broughty Ferry to Dundee, scout about for his fellow crew members, knowing most of them would be in the Bodega bar, and bring them back to their base. If he couldn't find them, which did happen occasionally, he would simply board the bus and return to the ferry. The intrepid Bamse became not only the ship's mascot, but the mascot of the Royal Norwegian Navy, and went on to become the mascot of the Free Norwegian Forces. After his master left the ship, having been given a new command in the Arctic, Bamse stayed on Thorodd and was mainly looked after by Albert Anderson. However, it wasn't all life-saving for the dog. He enjoyed watching football matches and was heard being very vocal in his support of his own team. He was also vocal one night at a concert. At the Care Dressed, Gerd Grieg, a classical singer, began singing in front of the sailors. It wasn't what they expected, and soon they began shuffling in their seats. Then, as the accompanying pianist began to play, and Gerd began to sing her next song, there was a loud howl, as Bamse joined in dolefully. Everything went silent for a moment, then everyone burst into laughter. The concert ended there and then, and the sailors left for the local pubs to retell the tale of the singing Bamse. At Montrose, Bamse became a bit of a celebrity, and was well known to the local butchers and bakers in Castle Street, who gave him scraps, although he did once pinch a string of sausages. He also enjoyed a beer or two as he made his way along Ferry Street. Once, Bamse was confined to barracks for fighting with another dog. As soon as he was released, he was allowed to go on shore, and as soon as his forepaws hit land, he went hunting for his opponent and duly found him. He lifted him by the scruff of the neck and tossed him over the side of the quay into the deep water. Bamse never saw his homeland freed, as he died of heart failure at Montrose docks in 1944. His health had been failing for some time, and he'd become noticeably thinner and was breathless. Thorodd had been tied up at Montrose since 1st July 1944, the ship requiring repairs, and Bamse died on Saturday 22nd July. He was 7 years old. He was surrounded by his crew when vet Willie Rice attended to him. However, he was also suffering from pneumonia, so he was put to sleep. He was buried with full military honours, with hundreds of Norwegian seamen, Allied servicemen, and locals all attending his funeral the following day. He was carried from the ship on a short ladder down the gangplank and buried by the entrance of Montrose harbour. On 30th September 1984, Bamse was awarded the Norwegian Order of Dogs for his war service, 9th February 1940 until 22nd July 1944. He had also been given the accolade of being the first Norwegian dog mascot to join the PDSA Allied Forces Mascot Club. On Tuesday, 17th October 2006, a large bronze memorial to Bamse was unveiled in Montrose, to much pomp and ceremony. Made of bronze by Scottish sculptor Alan Heriot, it lies in Wharf Street. Another smaller bronze statue was unveiled at his hometown of Honningsvåg, and this was unveiled in the town on Friday 19th June 2009. Every 10 years, the Royal Norwegian Navy returns to Montrose to honour Bamse, a dog who left his indelible mark on everyone who met him. But that's not quite the end of his story. Bamse played matchmaker with fellow sailors, the local women coming across and clapping the dog, then chatting to the men. But he himself also had a few romantic encounters, and it's believed his descendants are still in and around Dundee. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.